Right, Crowbar Gym, downtown Leesburg. So today, I get this question a lot, so I should just do a video on it just because it's in my mind. So today, I'm just going to talk about knee pain and what kind of derives and what you can do to mitigate the issue. And so we see you got the Crowbar Gym logo there. All right, so one of the things that happens with a lot of people is that I have seen as well is people get these knee injuries and they're very acute first. Okay, so that means that it's through a lot of repetition, a lot of time. It could be due to their sport, and what ends up happening is that they build up all this tissue in the knee, or like in the patella, or it could be the MCL, SCL, right? So any of that stuff, when you have that knee pain, how do you troubleshoot all that? So the first thing to really take care of before we start getting into exercises or anything of that nature, okay, we have to understand that if you've been doing training for a very long time, you have to equate the concept of overtraining. Okay, so if you've been overtraining this whole time because you're in a sport and you think more work is better, okay, guys, that's number one. You need to ease off on training. Number one. Okay. Number two, all right, definitely, if you don't think you broke it or ripped it or anything of that nature, right? Some people are like, oh, I will know. That's not usually the case. It's been through what I've done in this lifting career, in the strength lab, if you know what I mean. That some people can like rip the tissue there in the knee, and they still function perfectly fine. And yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of like, how does that function, right? So some people have these injuries from just something ballistic or it happened through overtime. Number one or number two. The other, so I would suggest definitely going to a doctor first before you start doing exercises. If you have something more than a week, 2 or 3 weeks, it's time to go get checked up. So that's important. All right. Once you got checked up and he's like, oh, here's some drugs or whatever the case is. Well, now it's time to get into more holistic practices. All right. And holistic practices is meaning that we're going to look at the body as a whole. All right. So number one, how's your food intake? So if you've been doing this training thing for a very long period of time, right? Most likely you've been eating the SAD diet, or you've been eating low carb or something of that nature. These are inflammatory foods if you don't do them right. If you have too much cheese, too much oil, too much protein, too much salts and sugars, when you're overly consuming food, they do cause plaque, they cause cellular breakdown, leaky gut issues, stuff like that. Okay, so check your food. I recommend a whole food plant-based diet or a moderate Mediterranean diet. With that means that you're doing very low protein from meat, you're doing very low fat, and then you want to stick to real fat. And real fat doesn't come from meat, guys. Real fat is plant fat. We're not talking about oils either. We're talking about like nuts and seeds and things like that, right? And if you have any allergic reactions to this inflammation, that it will come from either too much meat because leaky gut, or it will come from what's it called, too much oils in your diet, especially if they're more refined and they're fake. All right, and I'll get into another subject matter on like how you approach that, but you need to check that, bring it down. Carbs are not bad. Carbs are good for you. You need them as an athlete. Okay. Now remember, if you put sour cream on top of sour cream or butter on potato, okay, don't blame the potato because you're getting fat, guys. You're getting fat because of the sour cream and the butter. So let's take care of that. The second thing is mechanically, what is going on with your mechanics? So if you have a job where you're consistently moving all the time, or if you do a sport where you're trying to be as most efficient as possible, right? Well, there's wear and tear with that. And if you're not doing proper training, we're either doing calisthenics, and calisthenics have their place in training. And I've had a lot of jabs on that because calisthenics don't work. It's because you don't do them right. So you want to do proper calisthenics with proper holds, proper mechanics. That's important. If you don't want to just jump around and flop around like a moron, because that doesn't do anything. You want to move slow through a calisthenic movement. Okay. You also want to make sure that you're doing the right technique. That means that you're not doing knees over toes. All right. Not getting into the subject matter why it's not good, but it's just not good. Look at mechanics. Okay. It has its place, but not for what I'm talking about. You need to do proper mechanics. All right. And also too, when you're doing a single leg squat or anything of that nature, it's not for strength, guys. That's for mechanics. That's to balance you out. All right. And so we'll get into more corrective exercises to help the knee out. The second thing is, do you have structure that technically is tight, right? So are your muscles tight? Are your tendons tight, right? Well, if they are, guess what? They're going to cause you knee pain. They're going to cause you back pain. They're going to cause you shoulder pain, all right? You're not going to do well with all this tightness. And that, mind you, that tightness comes from poor diet, poor sleep, and poor drink, just not drinking well, not drinking enough water. So making sure that your muscles are nice and loose, learning how to loosen your muscles. Definitely get a massage. We offer them here in the Crowbar Gym. We have a professional here who does it. So if you guys are looking for something like that, you don't want something kind of like, hey, a relaxing one. You want a sport trigger point, something that gets Ralphing is a different one too as well. Those are all great. You want a massage that technically does stretching. So if you don't stretch, you don't know how to stretch. That's another thing you need to get into. You need to properly learn how to stretch. Okay? Now you got to look at your mechanics in your sport. If you are doing things in your sport and you're trying to work on a different different mechanics, you can throw your own mechanics off. So you want to make sure that you have someone that helps you with that, or you do the research and you technically do it correctly, because you could be doing movements that are putting your joints in jeopardy because you don't have the proper mechanics through either a swing or a kick or kneeling or whatever you're doing in whatever sport you're doing. Okay, especially if you have knee pain. Usually what people are, they're very weak in the movement, and it's not about being stronger in the sense of a whole. You can be very strong. You can lift a lot of weight, right? But neurologically, you don't have the capacity to actually make that range of motion function appropriately because you don't practice. So that's why doing a calisthenic would be beneficial, or working out very slowly on machines, or working out even with a barbell, holding the barbell in a certain way, making sure that you're balancing yourself, making sure that you're getting the proper squat. Is range of motion good, better, or no? Just depends. In reality, range of motion means nothing. You don't really need it. You can do static holds, and that's honestly, if you have an injury, I would suggest you do static holds because it's safer. Okay? So these are some of the things you can do for these are some of the things you can consider for knee pain. All right? And that's also goes for almost any joint that's out there. So check your diet first, see if you have inflammation. Second, after that, make sure your mechanics are good to go. Got to learn how to stretch, guys. That's another one. If you need to do recovery work, if you're overtraining, cut that shit out. You don't need to train more. If anything, you need to train smarter, right, with the proper equipment, with the proper techniques, right? And then here's my shameless plug-in. All right, if you guys have injuries or anything of that nature, you have any post-rehab that we do in here, pretty much is tied in right into the training, right? We comprise a 45-minute workout into 15 minutes, right? Either once or twice a week. That's it. It's very simple. High-tension training, right, on these awesome machines called adaptive resistance exercise. All right? So if you guys were interested, give me a call. You got the email down there. Either one. Hit me up on the post. All right, peace out. Crowbar Gym.